topography of the human soul. The book is a passionate, inspired amalgam of New Age spirituality, Eastern mysticism, and intense Talmudic from the Talmud self-examination, combined with the psycho-spiritual philosophies of self-actualization promoted by Maslow, Rogers, and Martin Buber. The author, using his own life as a template, bravely attempts the reconciliation of transactional and transformational approaches to human relationships. He brings his heart to the slaughter and his best bone to the fight. The book is engaging and easy to understand, offering ample rewards for the thoughtful and discerning reader. It has certainly inspired me. And that was a review by Gary Binkowski, that's off his website, which is, and I'll give you all the proper information in just a second, which is www.stillimperfectlens.com. Welcome, author and Cantor Elliot Talenfeld. At last, we got you on the show. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here with you. Well, welcome, fellow Pittsburgher. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. What a coincidence.
I know. What a coincidence. So let's tell the audience, because they don't know our story. They don't know your story. They might know a little bit about my story, but your story is very, very interesting indeed. So you were raised on Mellon Street in Pittsburgh, right? For all the Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Okay. And
about a block and a half away from B'nai Israel on Negley Avenue.
Yeah, I was raised on Rosecrest Drive in Stanton Heights. That's about another 4 blocks away. Really, it's not that far at all. And you were raised Jewish.
Yes, I am still Jewish.
You're still Jewish, I know, but I mean, I'm just going back to the history, right? And
Okay.
and yeah, I prepared some questions, of course. That's what every good interviewer does, because I was looking at your website, and it's a very profound website. I urge people to go there.
Thank you.
Let me talk about.
You know, there's a picture at the back of there's a chapter called "When God and I Were on a First Name Basis."
Yeah.
It's chapter 1 of the book, and there's a picture of me all dressed up in my best shul clothes at the beginning of the chapter, and at the end there's a picture of the synagogue itself, which is a grand kind of Moorish structure on Negley Avenue. It's still there today. Unfortunately, the synagogue is closed.
You know, that was a beautiful synagogue. It was really stunningly beautiful, B'nai Israel. And, you know, my first experiences really of going to synagogue were there. And
Mine too.
And, you know, there was this sort of, I don't know why it closed, except that a lot of people moved out of those neighborhoods. And a lot of Jewish people.
Well, sure. That's what happens. It's a demographic trend around the country.
Yeah.
People are moving to the suburbs. And, the inner city synagogues are closing.
When was the last time you were there?
I was in Pittsburgh a couple of years ago. I still have family in West Virginia. And my wife has family in the city, so we go back every now and then for family occasions.
And when were you?
But I last sang at
when you last sang at the synagogue. Yeah.
Back in 1995, I think it was about the last service that they held there in the main sanctuary before they closed it down.
Yeah.
And our friend Clarene Karsh was there with her husband, and it was quite a privilege to daven there as a visiting cantor on that final occasion.
Yes, I can imagine. That would be quite a special occasion, very special indeed. You know, she was, just to talk about Mrs. Karsh for a second, she was, my greatest memory of her, I must be honest, is in her kitchen. In her kitchen. She had kids, every one of her kids had a kid over that was like another member of the family. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was a family. They weren't just friends. You were automatically another kid of hers. And I have
And she
had,
reached out
yeah, go on.
to young kids. She purposely included. I mean, when I started singing in her choir, I must have been about 10 years old.
Yeah,
And of course, there were professional quality adult singers all through the age spectrum in that group. But it was important to her, I think, to have a mixed group like that and involve the kids at an early age.
yeah,
For a lot of us, that was our first exposure to music,
yeah.
as well as to the synagogue liturgical stuff.
And she was an opera singer in her career, and she had a beautiful voice, really powerful, beautiful
Mm-hmm.
voice. And my memories of her singing, not just in shul, but and directing the choir, which she did and did so beautifully. Uh, but at home with the family singing "Summertime," when she sang that, there wasn't a dry
Mm-hmm.
eye in the house. Beautiful rendition of
Mm-hmm.
"Summertime." So, we're dedicating the show. We both agreed we're dedicating the show to her. She was a fine human being. You couldn't ask for a better friend. She, I went through some rough times, and she really gave me a lot of support in my youth. And I will always love her. Always, I will always care about her. It's these are very special people, and people who care. It's like the old song, people who really care about other people, and she was very deeply caring about many things. I'll tell you one quick story about her, and then we'll move on. I was going through an interesting patch around 2004 or 5, and I had lost touch with the people who I was so connected to, because I've lived a long time in the UK, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just a very weird set of circumstances where I was in an area near where I live called West Hampstead, and I was up there because I had some problems with a tooth, and I was at my dentist, and she numbed me up, and she said, "Go take a walk and come back," right? So I walked across the street. There was like a thrift shop there, and I thought, "Oh, what's in there? Let's have a look." And there were these beautiful Chagall windows done in, in the hand stitching. What's it called? Mrs. Karsh did
Needlepoint.
needlepoint. Thank you, needlepoint. That's it. That's the word. And I got this. I was standing outside this window and looking at these, and they were exactly the way Mrs. Karsh had done hers. And I remember when she did them all. She did every last one of them. I think there's 12. And she used to say to me, "What do you think of the colors, Shawnee? Do you like these colors?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're beautiful." And every stitch perfect, And when I saw those, I literally felt her next to me. And I heard her say, because I am a medium, I heard her say to me, "Tell all my kids," and she emphasized all my kids, "that I love them." And I was so surprised. I looked down and I saw these needle points, and I thought, my God, nobody else that I ever knew in my whole life did these except her, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I got back in touch with her daughter and her son, Kenny, and I said, "Look, your mother came to me," and right then, not long after that, Harriet passed away, which was her other daughter. So it was like, and this time now, Paula's husband passed away. I mean, this is not coincidence. Do you know what I mean? This is, she
Mm-hmm.
always knew I was psychic, and she always supported me. She used to say to me, "Shawnee's got the shine."
That's cute.
And that was the way she was. She never would say that was rubbish or crazy, like I heard in my own house. She would say, so this is the kind of woman we're talking about. And I would not be surprised if she set this up for us to let her family know that she's there in all these difficult times, and good times too, of course. Okay, Elliot, let's go back to your story. Your story is amazing. And I just want to go back to, I'll tell you the first question. How did you begin your journey into more than just being a nice Jewish boy? What made you come to the belief that you needed to be more? And what was your nickname for God? Which I know, but the audience doesn't. So if you can start us off there.
Well, I suppose my search starts in chapter 1 when I'm, 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
And I begin the text of that chapter, even in English. O Lord our God and God of our fathers was a mouthful for a 9-year-old.
Yes.
So, feeling certain we knew each other well enough to dispense with such formality, I decided to give God a nickname, something we'd keep between the two of us. And in an emergency, God forbid, we would also know right away that it was me. Our covenant in those days was just that, personal and straightforward, simple enough for a child to understand. My job was to behave, his to make sure only good things happened to my family and me. And that being the whole point, it occurred to me to use the initial letters of all our first names to form an acronym. With 2 parents and 3 siblings, I had 4 consonants and 2 E's to work with. And so, like an invisible med alert bracelet, I bound them for a sign around our wrists. Jeffler is our God. In emergency, called Jeffler.
That's so
And that was
cute.
my
Go on.
outlook as a youngster. And of course, the synagogue, B'nai Israel, that we were talking about, went perfectly with my sort of childish approach. It was a grand and mysterious place.
Yeah.
You remember that it had the entryway was a curved, long hallway um, that felt as you entered like you were making a pilgrimage up to the main sanctuary, uh, especially for those with little or tired old legs. It felt like climbing up Mount Zion. And then at the top, you could see this cavernous hall with a high domed ceiling and huge chandeliers twinkling brightly from up above. And then down a long center aisle of the rich mahogany art, splendid with gold-painted lions, rose up 25 feet from the dais. And hidden behind its sliding wooden doors, finished.
Hello, Elliot? Oh my God, we lost you. Elliot? The call got dropped, Elliot. Okay. We have some activity while Elliot's calling us back. Light Witch has joined the chat room. Hello, people in the chat on Blog Talk Radio. Hello, chatters. And I have, hello, I am back here on YouTube. Thank you. I'm sorry we had to end that one and put it on another one. I'm talking over here. Your camera can't see me, but I'm on another thing. Elliot, call back. Elliot, where are you? Call back. Let's hope he's going to call back because he is my guest. Okay, well, while Elliot's sorting it out, how about we have a little break? We'll have a musical break. I did choose a lot of great songs from Fiddler on the Roof. Why not? And here we go with Tradition. Speaking of the cantor, speaking of the little boy in the synagogue. Here we go. By Zara Mostel is singing this. Oh, that was the most amazing Zero Mostel singing from Fiddler on the Roof tradition. And the reason that I went to it is because Elliot's phone dropped, his call dropped, and we had to just grab something there instead of nothing at all. So Elliot is now back and he's waiting patiently. And hello, Elliot, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I'm back, and I'm not sure where I was in the conversation when it dropped. But
well, that's
I think I
okay.
have begun to-
We were going to do that
I
song
remember this.
anyway, but we were just running, late
All right.
because of technical difficulties. So I just threw it in there.
Sure.
And the reason I threw it in there is A, Fiddler on the Roof. First of all, Mrs. Karsh did that in the synagogue, if I'm not mistaken. And, that play, that they put on a play, I think, there, Fiddler on the Roof, when it came out. But also, it really describes every Jewish person's heritage. You know what I mean? It's the old story, isn't it? I took my daughter to see it here in London only a couple weeks ago, about a month and a half ago. So, next generation understands. Okay, so let's go back to your story. We're talking about, what you were talking about. I asked you about, and you were talking about your nickname for God. Now, as a child, right? So,
Sure. So as a child, you identify with all the majesty, the pageantry, and the mystery, and the stories, and so on. But as you go through adolescence, for most of us, some age or other, we reach a certain cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Between that and our routine daily experience of life and reality. So by the time I was in law school, I was, a little bit disillusioned with my tradition. Um, Not certainly a regularly observant Jew. And I picked up a copy of the famous book by Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi, which, as it turns out, is familiar to many people, and then oftentimes I hear that was the book that got them started as well down the sort of metaphysical pathway.
Now,
Okay?
yes, and I was just going to say that's such an important point that I want to just stop you for a second. I had that written here, and on the way to becoming who you are, when did you realize your need for esoteric knowledge, and how did you seek it? Well, there's the answer. And then, the New Age, the psychics, the mystical knowledge, of course, the Kabbalah. We're going to talk about all those things because they're really relevant to your story. And they're relevant to our show. Our show is about mind, body, spirit, metaphysics, spiritual seeking, all that, holistic medicine. So, okay, so wow, that book was extremely popular somewhere around the late 60s. Is that about the same time? Early 70s?
It would have been late 60s, early 70s when I read it.
Yeah.
I heard an interesting story about that, by the way. In posting excerpts from my book on Facebook, I've gotten to meet people from all over, and there was a fellow in New York who was fairly high up at the Self-Realization Fellowship organization.
Yeah.
And I got to have coffee with him and share stories. But he told me that when that book first came out, Yogananda had a very hard time getting anybody to publish it, and went knocking on doors for a long time before it was finally published. And of course, it went on to become a famous bestseller that's still in print and still selling. But that book moved me. It was the life story of Yogananda, and there was something so personal about it that I could identify with his humility and his aspirations for God and so on.
Yeah.
And it was sometime after that, I was a student at, I was already in law school, but there was a young guru who was making the scene, about a 14-year-old kid from India. And the book, I called him Devaji, Guru Devaji.
Mm.
And I was invited, I'll tell you an interesting story. I had sat down, I had been doing yoga and practicing transcendental meditation, which was all the rage then as well. And one day I was sitting there, and meditating deeply, I thought, and taking the long yogic breaths. And I began to ask myself a question, like, well, I wonder if any of that stuff I've been reading could really be true. Because Yogananda's message was that we can all have a direct inner experience of God. It doesn't just have to be an idea or a thought process.
Yes.
And and I remembered in that meditation that Yogananda had written about how his guru had appeared to him in meditation. And that's how he knew it was a kind of a sign. And so I started fantasizing to myself, I wonder if such a thing could happen to me. And I wonder if I could ask. And, this was for a Jewish intellectual, the very idea of having a direct experience of God or a conversation with God is alien. I'm sad to say.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not true for Hasidim and perhaps Orthodox people, but for most of us, it's a very intellectual process. And so it almost seemed Christian to me to think of praying and opening my heart and asking for a direct experience of God. But I said to myself in the middle of this meditation, well, no one's looking. What have I got to lose? And I said to God, if you're out there somewhere and you want to send me a guru or a sign that I can trust is from you, I'm open, I'm ready to hear it.
Mm.
And, it's very much like the stories many Christians tell, I'm sure, about their sort of acceptance of Christ moment.
Yes.
But this is what I said in the meditation. Then that night I got up and went over to visit a cousin who was in from England, interestingly enough.
Interestingly enough. Yes.
I didn't know him. I hadn't met him. And it turns out he was on his way to Houston, where this young guru was holding a festival. And all he wanted to do was tell me about this wonderful guru of his and all the wonderful things he was experiencing. And of course, I was struck by the timing, the coincidence of this coming so close on the heels of my prayer request for some direction and guidance. And as I was leaving that evening, my cousin, he handed me a magazine with a picture of the guru on it. Now, I left out an important part of the story. As I was meditating, I tried to conjure up some symbol or token that God might show me that would let me know that I was now receiving this direction and this message. And the image came to my mind during the meditation of a large red flower. I tried to imagine a guru walking towards me, and he had a large red flower on him to distinguish him. And of course, during that meditation, I can't say that this was a profound experience. I was very much feeling like I was just sort of making stuff up or stream of consciousness. But after my meeting with my cousin, I got home, and a few days later, I had tossed the magazine that he had given me about the guru on my coffee table. And I'm sitting there, and it was almost as though somebody standing behind me took hold of my head and raised it up to an angle in which it was focusing on the picture on the cover of that magazine. And on that picture was the guru wearing an enormous red carnation on his lapel.
Amazing.
Now, I had never had an experience like that, but it just, of course, to a seeker and somebody who wanted to have some direct input from God, and of course there was a lot of ego, I'm sure, involved in that as well. It was a profound moment. And so I began to engage with this group of followers of this guru who would hold regular evening satsang programs. And once again, I was so impressed when I went to these by of the speakers who were youngsters all the way up to people in their 80s. And there was no responsive reading, there was no script or agenda for the nightly program. But we would all be sitting in this hall together meditating. And whoever felt moved by the spirit, so to speak, or by the guru, would stand up and approach the microphone. And I listened to these young people, many of them Jewish, articulate spontaneously, extemporaneously, the most inspiring and heartfelt, loving message about their experience with this guru. I was just blown away by it because I had never heard that kind of heartfelt, passionate, and spontaneous communication in synagogue. I mean, let's be frank. I heard a lot of responsive reading. I heard a lot of sermons that seemed largely to be read word for word from notes. And here were these people of all kinds of education levels and ages just stepping up and singing the praises of this guru in a totally heartfelt and inspiring way. And I was hooked. I mean, I found myself just waiting till the evening came so I could go to these satsang programs to be uplifted. And I must say that at that time in my life, I had a little bit of a grudge. I sort of held it against my Jewish mentors in a way that they had settled for so much less, in my estimation, based on my experience at that time, than this kind of direct and impassioned personal experience of spiritual life and reality and God. And so I went down that path, continued it for several years, and did my meditations and so on.
Elliot,
can I describe in the book?
Your book, can I just tell our audience, because we got chopped and changed here a bit. So my guest today, if you haven't heard, is Cantor Elliot Talenfeld, who's also the author of his memoirs, his spiritual memoirs, which are called it's a book called Through a Still Imperfect Lens, which you can get it on Amazon or his website, which is all the W's, stillimperfectlens.com. Now, Cantor Talenfeld grew up in Pittsburgh, around the corner from me, literally, and we both went to the same shul, the same synagogue. He was the junior cantor there, who later became a full-on cantor, and also he's a lawyer, and you're also a counselor. Are you a psychotherapist, Elliot?
Yes, I spent most of my career actually not as a cantor, but as a lawyer.
Right.
I did work at a synagogue in Phoenix for about 6 years, almost full time as a cantor, but at the same time I was practicing law in a large law firm.
Right.
So I've always kind of worn multiple hats. Right. But it was late in my career that I decided to go back to school, and I took a degree in mental health counseling. I just found that I had developed such an interest over the years in how people communicate and in the relationship between spirituality and psychology and psychotherapy, that I wanted to get a credential and try that out. And I had already also been married for 25 years to a credentialed therapist. And so through all of that, I wanted to actually learn that trade, and it was a good experience. And I practiced for several years with an organization in Phoenix that counsels drug offenders who have been required to attend a certain number of therapy sessions for substance abuse. So I got that exposure as well.
That's a really excellent. I mean, that's what a mishmash, but very, of excellent qualifications. Really, I think I want to go back, if you don't mind, Elliot. I'd like to go back and touch upon, the craving or the longing for God is very strong for some people. I can't say it's strong for everyone, because you don't see that reflected in the world, do you? But for some people, it is extremely powerful. And I think for spiritual... Yeah, go on. My question to you... Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, my question, because you clearly are and were a spiritual seeker at a very young age. when you found, to a lot. And I need to say this because I have a big, first of all, I'm half Jewish. My mother was Catholic, my father was Jewish, but we were raised Jewish. Okay, go figure. I had a bas mitzvah, the whole schmear. And I identify as Jewish. I will say that. I may look like my mother's side, but I definitely identify as Jewish. And but my spiritual seeking, uh, you know, was really outside of the Jewish thing. And I have great friends I grew up with who I love dearly, who are very Jewish, committed to Judaism. Judaism is the thing. But when I stepped outside of the Jewish sort of parameters, I found so many people in spirituality, metaphysics, New Age, who actually were Jewish. And
Yes.
this is a thing I
And
wanted. Yeah, go on.
I think we have been so on the vanguard of these New Age movements. As I mentioned, that so many of the followers of this guru were Jewish in their upbringing.
Yes.
I went on to get involved in the next decade or so with a channeler, a psychic medium, who was married to a Jewish man who had been a protege of Werner Erhard, who started the S.
Yes, I did est. I did est in California.
Okay.
Yeah, 19.
Right. So then you know how many of those leaders had a Jewish background, because I think many of us were seeking a more direct
Experience.
in the moment experience of something that we call God than we were finding in our Jewish environment, and that's a sad commentary.
Well, but that's really.
I think that's borne out by the statistics of what's going on with Judaism today, the demographics of how many have left.
This is so important. I really need to. I know your book. We're going to get to your book and talk more about it, but this is a really important point because people today, what I found in my own search was that it all led me back to the Kabbalah, which is essentially Jewish. It's Jewish mysticism. But that doesn't mean that the Jews are right and everyone's wrong. That's not going to be helpful on any level. But I do think that, Baba Ram Dass, was Jewish. Some of the major players, Bob Dylan, Jewish. Very major players who were brought about a consciousness. If you say Bob didn't bring about a consciousness, that's wrong, because the person who wrote How Many Roads Must a Man Walk Down Before You Call Him a Man is extreme higher consciousness. I think the whole consciousness movement, and this is just my feeling from doing this work for many decades myself, I just feel we're all looking for something. And we're looking for something that tells us God is there. God hears us. God helps us. God wants us. God loves us. And that we mean something to God. More than just mean something to God.
And in my experience, going through these various spiritual paths, I did meditation, I did yoga, I did the guru, I did the channeler.
Yeah.
I lived in a spiritual New Age community, and still, I was an intellectual. I was an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
My mind remained fully engaged.
Mm.
And I remember experiencing an almost schizophrenic conflict, really, between the one group, the spiritual seeker group, who would look at me and see a pinstripe suited lawyer and accuse me of coming from my mind rather than my heart.
Mm.
And then in the intellectual circles, if I went to my law firm, of course, there I looked like a New Age freak, not in appearance, but in my identification with channelers and so on. And my partners would ask if I had heard from any higher authorities lately. as a reference to citations in a belief of higher authority. So I felt like I was uniquely situated to bring these two worlds together. And one of the things I write in my book is that the heart, the so-called heart, and the so-called mind no more need to vie with each other or compete with each other than do the liver and the kidney. They perform different functions. They complement one another, and we need them both. So we mustn't throw out the baby with the bathwater as we reach for spiritual direct experience of God, our aliveness and awareness and our fuller consciousness, whatever you want to call it. That doesn't mean that we can't be responsible people, thinking people, and so what I found, unfortunately, this is what I described throughout my book, is that in each of these spiritual paths I went down, there came a point of divergence between me and that guru or that so-called spiritual community, because, as often is the case in spiritual movements, ego comes in, power and control come in, conflict comes in, and then you're led to question, well, how can this be so spiritual? I'll tell you an interesting story. You don't need to stop.
Elliot, I want to stop. I'm so sorry, but we need to take we always take a break at the top of the hour. I know we got a little bit behind. We had a little break with tradition. I'm going to I have to give people this time to run to the bathroom, do what they need to do. And it's a 2-minute song. We'll pick up on that. And I also want to use I have it in my notes, soulmates. I want to talk about soulmates, which you've written about, and much more. We'll be back, everyone, with Cantor author Elliot Talenfeld, who is from Pittsburgh, my hometown. And that's his hometown, too. He doesn't live there anymore, neither do I, but we both have strong connections there. Now, I'm going to play, because we're on the theme of so many things, spiritual, Jewish, Jerusalem by Neil Diamond, a nice Jewish boy from the Jazz Singer, which, of course, was done in 1980, and he was a cantor in that too. So here we go, 2 minutes, 53 seconds. We'll be back.
You know that you could find me on the way to Jerusalem, but I took a magic carpet ride to a popular movie show. That's where I found her. It's on the way to Jerusalem. She was hanging on a silver screen, a Technicolor Michelangelo. But I was rolling on the way to Jerusalem. I was headed for the promised land, and nothing made me go against the tide. But I took a little turn, yeah, was on the way to Jerusalem. What's another day more or less? You pay your money and you take your ride. One more day, gonna be one more day, and I got to go. On my way, tell them I'm on my way, but I need to know, does Jerusalem close? Does Jerusalem close? When does it close? Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, we're back. Cafe Esoterica Radio with Cantor Elliot Talenfeld. Did you like that song, Elliot?
Sure.
From the jazz singer. Have you seen? You must have seen that with Neil Diamond. He's a cantor. He wants to be a rock star.
To be honest.
Sorry?
I know that. That story is repeated with, that story is the story of Al Jolson and how many
Yeah.
others that,
Yeah.
that grew up in the same environment we've been discussing.
Yes.
But I wanted to get back and finish this story.
Please do. Please do.
About the conflict between so-called head or mind and heart.
Yes.
So I had these incredible experiences in meditation, following the directions of the guru that had initiated me into this particular process of meditation.
Mm.
And when the end came, which in that case was when one night at satsang they announced that he was no longer going to be our Satguru, and they were going to just transition from this whole Eastern Indian mystical environment to a more secular one where he could build himself as a humanitarian leader and teacher, which is fine, but it was a big disappointment to those of us who had been promised some kind of spiritual future with him as a direct intermediary for us. And I know that's not at all Jewish, and it was a very hard thing for most of us to accept. But when he changed direction on us, and many of us were disillusioned at that point, I a few years later, for a few years, I was bereft. I felt directionless. And then a fellow law professor, I was on a law faculty at that time teaching, told me about a psychic healer that he had been going to, who was a Jewish woman. And I sort of was a little bit burnt out with the whole spiritual seeker trip, and for a while resisted his invitation to introduce me to her. But finally, my curiosity got the better of me again. And I went to visit and to get to know and begin to work with this lady who lived in a little suburban neighborhood outside of Los Angeles, and was the most amazing psychically gifted woman. I remember the first time I went to see her, I lay down on her couch, and she put her hand above my forehead, and the feeling of heat coming out of her hand was so pronounced that I literally insisted on looking up her sleeve to see if she had a flashlight or some other source of energy that I was feeling. And during the course of my work with her, one of the things that came up, it was almost like being in therapy in the sense that we would talk about my life and my issues, conflicts. But unlike a regular therapist who would, gauge where you were coming from based on your language and the words that you chose and so on and so forth, this lady would see my auras shifting and make observations that were coming from a different source not available to your routine psychotherapist.
Mm.
So one of the first issues I raised with her was my sense of disappointment with the guru. And I said, how can it be that God would respond to my sincere request and prayer to show me a direction and lead me down this, what turned out to be a primrose path, which I never would have taken if it weren't for the so-called signs and wonders that I experienced along the way, that meditation that I was so blissed out in, that red rose, that carnation that showed up, and so on and so forth. And in the book I described quite a few more dramatic personal experiences that had reconfirmed for me that I was on the right path with this guru.
Right.
And I said, but now that this has all come to naught, how can I not reject the whole spiritual search, the whole process, in light of these contradictions? And this lady, psychic, paused, went silent for a few minutes, and said, well, I don't think you're going to like what he just told me. And by he, she was referring to, I guess, one of my spirit guides or something that she could see or hear or whatever. And I said, come on, Sarah, out with it. What did he tell you? And she said, well, what he said just now, in response to your question, was, even a flower needs shit to grow. And that was going to be the title of my book originally. Even a flower needs shit to grow.
That's funny. That's really funny.
In that statement. And I think my whole growth process has been one of separating the shit, pardon my phraseology, from the actuality of whatever spiritual experiences or insights we pick up along the way, so that we can basically integrate the heart and the mind, the spiritual and the worldly, and become whole without choosing to reject one world in favor of the other. So many of us either choose to be down to earth, lawyers, doctors, dentists, whatever, breadwinners, and everything else is rationed to a sort of a token weekly church or synagogue attendance or something like that. And then the other camp is those who go to the extreme of disassociating from the practical world and running off to join one movement or another, renounce worldly concerns. I think we've got to do both. We've got to find a way to integrate them. That's really what my book is all about.
Okay, it's a very, very interesting dynamic that you went through. And I think, anyone who's a spiritual seeker of any kind would ask, it's the sanest question in the world, why me? Why did that happen to me if you care about me, And I think, I have it in here, so I might as well go there. I wasn't going to go there yet. I wanted to go to soulmates. But let's go to the old, why did the Holocaust happen if you care about me? Let's go to some of these profound questions, because I know they're in your book, and I know that people are, now we have Holocaust deniers, which is even worse, that's the worst of it. But how can you have faith? I mean, I have faith, okay, but I've been a spiritual seeker since I was really a young girl, okay, and even I question my faith, and I'm 63 years old, so that's a lot of years looking for God, Sometimes I have profound experiences which are mind blowing. Other times I have what are they out to lunch? They're not even answering the call. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And
that's right. I do know what you're saying.
Yeah. So why is it so inconsistent, do you think?
I don't have an answer to that, Shawn. I really don't. But I think that we have to not conclude from that inconsistency that our profound and wonderful and uplifting and transcendent experiences that we have when we have them are any less valid or real, just because they're not sitting there at our beck and call, showing up whenever we would like to have such an experience. But you're right, that's the mystery, the question. I don't have answers for why bad things happen to good people. There's a whole book about that by a rabbi.
Do Jews believe in, Elliot, did Jews believe in karma? They don't, do they?
Jews believe in it. I don't think so as such. But I sure do.
And do Jews believe in reincarnation? Which I had this discussion with my Israeli boyfriend many, many years ago, ex-boyfriend now, of course, many years ago. He told me that Jews believe in 4 different lives. I don't know. He went into this whole thing. And since you're a Cantor, I'm going to ask you. I don't think Jews believe in reincarnation.
I'm not a scholar.
I know, but
I'm not a scholar or a rabbi. But I can only tell you, I don't know most of the answers to these questions. Do we have past lives? I've had some past life experiences, some of which I describe in the book.
Right. That's very interesting to me because I'm a past life regressionist myself, and that's very interesting that you had these experiences and you wrote about them. See, so okay, so what I'm picking up and what I'm thinking here is that you are a soul, a person who was brought up Jewish, and you love your Jewish religion. However, you wanted more. You wanted a personal connection to God, and you sought it.
That's true.
And everything that
That's true. I sought it wherever I could find it.
Yeah.
The crumbs or the hints or the so on. But I, you know, I kept my eyes open, and I paid a high price for that search. There was a lot of disappointment. But my mantra to myself was, do not throw out the baby with the bathwater of what you have just experienced. Your job as a spiritual seeker, as a human soul, is to learn and grow and move on to the new circumstances with which your life presents you now. And gradually, reframe all of that experience so that it works, so that it fits, so that it makes sense in your present context as you move through life.
Beautifully put.
And that's what I do through my marriages. You were asking about.
Yeah, let's go to soulmates, because you mentioned it in your book, and it's on your website about soulmates. Do you believe in soulmates?
Well, not in the way that it was packaged in the spiritual community that I joined, which was premised on the idea of spiritual soulmates, and that this channeler, or the entity that you channeled, could identify who was with the right person or not with the right person.
Right.
I lived for 25 years with a therapist who was declared to be my soulmate, and I don't want to give away too much of the story because it's the story part of the book.
Right.
But what I came away with from the experience is that we are together with whoever we're together as a part of our curriculum, psycho-spiritually, and that we learn and grow from what happens there and what we do. There was something came across my Facebook feed just the other day, and I was so struck by it that I reposted it. But it said, spiritual growth doesn't happen in meditation or on a yoga mat or in a synagogue or in a church. It happens when you're frustrated, angry, or scared, and you're doing the same old things you always did in response to it. And then suddenly a light goes on and you realize that you have a choice to do different. Now that captures to me the whole psycho-spiritual process. We don't discover our spirituality in this tidily packaged religious environments that we create. And those are fine to help encourage us and inspire us and so on and so forth. But we find it in the kitchen, in the laundry room, in the bedroom, in the interactions that we have with those that are dearest to us. And one of the things I write in my introduction to the book, I say that my main hypothesis is that our significant others provide the relational laboratory and spiritual catalyst for both our emotional healing and our personal and spiritual growth. For it is in relationship that we find and raise up those scattered Kabbalistic sparks. And our love for those we hold most dear, when we allow ourselves to fully feel and express it, is the still imperfect lens through which we glimpse the face of God. So that's kind of the premise of the book. And the cover picture of the Hubble telescope was a reflection of that. You might recall that when it was first launched, it was malfunctioning. Pictures were all coming back blurred. So they had to send some astronauts up to make some repairs in space on this Hubble telescope that now returns towards pictures, that one of which is posted on the front of my book.
Beautiful.
So in my the metaphor is that my life, for me at least, I see it as a constant refining and repairing and improving of the lens through which we see life and reality, and in particular, our relationships with those we love.
Elliot, believe it or not, we only have a couple minutes left. I know it's ridiculous. It goes so fast, and we had our technical glitches, but you've been a wonderful guest, and I've learned so much from you. And I would love to invite you to come back. Maybe another,
Sure.
we'll put you on again when we have, now that we've only touched the surface. And I think your work, I think what you're trying to get to people is extremely important. It's just, when you've been on this ship that sailed, I've been on this ship a long time. My sea legs are firm, and I've met a lot of spiritual people along the way, some brilliant, genius, some complete phony balonies. They haven't a clue what it really means to be spiritual. And, you're the real deal. You are a person who, through your heart, really sought God. That is a huge statement, because not a lot, I'm sorry to say this, it sounds so bitter, but it's true. From my experience, I have metaphysics students that don't seek God. They want all the zhuzh, but they don't want the connection. And I say that with love, because I try to teach them the opposite, seek God with all your heart, and I think that it's extremely important for the message you have. And I sent a lot of, the link for the show on every Jewish Facebook site I could, because I think it's important to be, when we have traditional religion, and traditional religion is limited in certain ways, it's okay to want to be different. It's okay to want to expand your consciousness. It's okay to want to develop yourself further. And you don't regret any of your journey, do you?
No, I don't. And the other interesting theme that my book goes into is the relationship between our spirituality and our psychological search and conflict, and the role of the therapist in our growth of it. These days, a lot is being written about so-called psycho-spiritual integration, but that's another topic for another time.
We never talked about M. Scott Peck, and I just want to show my audience here. By the way, we have a new moon in Virgo coming up tomorrow. This is M. Scott Peck's book, A World Waiting to Be Born. Of course, his runaway bestseller was, The Road Less Traveled, right? A Road Less Traveled. And you were pen pals. You were exchanging information back and forth. We don't even have time to discuss that. So, Elliot, when you come back, shall we discuss that and go from there?
All right, that's fine. And the correspondence between Peck and myself, which he filed with his final papers at the Fuller Theological Seminary, is posted on my website for anybody that wants to read that discussion that went on over a period of a decade or so with him.
Right. I would love to. I mean, it's on the website. I was peeking in and peeking out because we didn't have time to read it all. Okay, I'm going to just, we have a couple things. This question I can squeeze in very quickly. What is the female component of God in Judaism?
You're referring, I think, to the Shekhinah?
Yes. Yes, because right now there's a big movement for the divine feminine to be coming back, and the patriarchy to be kind of, backing off. And I think it's very interesting that we now have, women rabbis and so on. So Judaism is embracing a lot of this. But do you think we might have more of this in the future?
Well, I think the things that we have identified with the feminine, and the things that we identify with the masculine, live in all of us.
Yes.
And are part of us and need to be integrated. It's not a choice. It's one or the other.
Yes.
We have to embrace it all and integrate.
Spoken like a true therapist. Thank you so much, Elliot. You've been a wonderful guest. I am a little sorry that we had so many technical glitches, but this is the way it goes. And I would just like to read out my In This Metaphysical Moment, and then we're going to go out with another song, a beautiful song from Fiddler on the Roof, which is Now I Have Everything. So, folks, if you'll join me next week, we have the naturopath, which I mentioned. She's coming in. Her name is Dr. Maria Cronin. And so, thank you, Elliot. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. You're very welcome. Go to Elliot's website and get his book, Through a Still Imperfect Lens. And now I'm going to read In This Metaphysical Moment. Transformation. In the height of summer, you see all the beautiful winged butterflies flit by. They touch down lightly on the splay of multicolored flowers, infusing their goodness while receiving their own. It is nature doing what it does best, creating an interdependent connection for not only survival, but well-being. All species want and must evolve, but humans are born to evolve. Without morals, education, spiritual mana, the human race would probably die out.
90 seconds.
Or be so brutal, who would want to be in it? It needs connection, and it thrives best on spiritual connectivity. But the age-old question prevails. Which person speaks the truth for our enlightenment? Must we seek only one? How about many? Hundreds of thousands have come to this planet to share their vast spiritual knowing from previous lives. In India, this is the guru.
60 seconds.
In Zen Buddhism, this is the master. In Judeo-Christian religions, we do not speak of past lives per se. So what happens when you keep dreaming of one or feel compelled to go to another country, which is so achingly familiar to you? You must follow your dreams, visions, prompts for wholeness. Transformation comes in many forms, with many paths and many inner journeys along the way. Just like the etheric beauty of the butterfly's wings, filled with color to delight as we gaze upon it, we did not see the time spent in the cocoon, nor did we even consider it. But time she spent gestating before it could emerge, transformed as the miracle of a butterfly. In this
10 seconds.
In this metaphysical moment, cherish your transformations and all the road work, path work, sacred work, journaling, your spiritual education, cocooning, introspection, and inner vision brings you, for there is a higher purpose at stake. The butterfly transforms to feed the flower, and the flower gladly receives its sweet nectar. As humans must continue their own journey of growth for transformation and well-being, they must open their minds, hearts, and willingly partake. No one flower is enough, and no one idea can suffice. So I open my mind to whatever feels holy and positive to help feed my longing soul who craves divine wisdom, which leads to enlightenment and glorious transformation. That's it. We're out. Here we go with the song from Fiddler on the Roof, Now I Have Everything. And this is from the 2004 Broadway version. And good night. God bless. See you next week. Thank you, Elliot. Here we go.
I used to tell myself that I had everything, but that was only half true. I had an aim in life, and that was everything, but now I even have you. I have something that I would die for, someone that I can live for too. Now I have everything. Not only everything, I have a little bit more. Besides having everything, I know what everything's for. I
I used to wonder, could there be a wife to share such a difficult, wandering kind of life?
I was on the other side, waiting right here.
Who knows tomorrow where our home will be?
I'll be with you in the home and not for
Everything is right at hand, simple and clear. I have something that I would die for, someone that I can live for too. Now I have everything, not only everything, I have a little bit more. Besides having everything, I know what everything's for.
And we're out. Thank you, everyone, for coming. See you next week. Take care. God bless. All the best. Bye now.
Thank you for using Blog Talk.
Okay, everyone, well, it's been quite a show. You know, it's interesting. My camera is so much better on my other computer, but I can't use, this is what happens when I do the simultaneous broadcast. Okay, what happens is you can't hear it, or there's audio issues because the mic is using two sources, Facebook and Blog Talk Radio, which it doesn't really help. But I kind of like to, I like to get my show out. I like to get the word out. And we had an original thing up and I had to stop it and then come back. So I'm going to have to alter this and make it all work. I hope I can. And thank you for coming. If you're watching this in the archives, I hope you could hear my guest. His name was Cantor, or author. He's an author as well. Elliot Talenfeld, and his book, Through a Still Imperfect Lens. Please get it. It's amazing, his journey. We are spiritual seekers living in a material world. The world is not a nice place, really. Sometimes it is, and that's fabulous. But oftentimes there's a lot of suffering and pain here. And so I try in my own little way just to bring you authors, people, that maybe will ease some of that suffering. Why should we suffer? Why is suffering, part of the curriculum here? And as Elliot said, sometimes his experience was, to grow. Basically, it's always to grow. So keep growing. Keep coming back. Next week, we have a naturopath. And we're going to have about another month of shows, and I'm going to take a break. All right. And if you can't hear the whole show, and this sometimes happens because of the miking situation, do go to, if you can't hear my guest, go to Blog Talk Radio / Cafe Esoterica Radio and scroll down and you'll see all my shows. And every show on there you can hear, usually. I mean, sometimes there are audio problems on there too. So I'll leave you with that. Good night. God bless. Take care of oneself and another. All the best. Bye now.